I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but here I am. My name's Jake and I'm 33. I've been with Emma for about 5 years now. We met in college, hit it off pretty quickly, and things seemed perfect, at least on the surface. She was beautiful, smart, confident, and always had this way of making me feel like I was the luckiest guy alive. We talk about getting married someday, and I honestly believed we were the perfect match. But I guess I was wrong. Lately, there were little signs that something was off. Emma started acting strangely around certain times, always coming home late or canceling plans at the last minute. She'd be short with me, dismissive even, and I couldn't shake this feeling that I was losing her little by little. I tried to brush it off as stress from work or some temporary phase, but deep down, I knew there was more to it. Then, about 2 weeks ago, I found her phone left open on the couch. I normally wouldn't do this, but I was curious and suspicious enough to peek. And that's when I saw the messages, flirty, suggestive, sometimes downright explicit. She was texting some guy named Mark, telling him how much she missed him, how she couldn't wait to see him again. The tone was intimate, familiar even, like they had some secret, ongoing thing. My stomach dropped. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I couldn't believe it. The woman I loved, the woman I was supposed to marry, was cheating on me with her boss, someone she'd told me was just a friend. She lied about everything. I started remembering all those little things she said, the excuses she made when I asked her where she'd been. Now it all clicked. She'd been sneaking around right under my nose and I had no idea. I didn't sleep that night. I kept going back over the texts, trying to find some explanation, some way to make sense of it, but there was nothing, just cold, harsh reality. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and so goddamn stupid for not seeing it sooner. How could I have missed all the signs? Was she really that good at hiding it? Or was I just blind? Hell, maybe I was always just a placeholder for her until she found someone who could give her what? She wanted sex, excitement, who knows what else. The next day I decided I had to confront her. I couldn't keep living with this secret hiding inside me. I waited until she came home from work. When she walked in, her usual confident smirk was missing. Instead, she looked annoyed, like I was bothering her with some petty problem. I threw the phone on the table and looked her right in the eyes. "Who is Mark?" I asked bluntly. My voice was steady, but inside I was shaking. Her eyes widened and she scoffed. "What are you talking about? I don't know what you mean." "You've been cheating on me, Emma. I saw the messages. You're lying right now, aren't you?" I could feel my hands trembling. I wasn't crying, but I was damn close. She rolled her eyes, crossing her arms. "Oh, please, you're overreacting. That's just work stuff, nothing serious. You're being paranoid." I didn't buy it. I knew she was lying. Her face was flush, her voice trying to sound dismissive, but I could see the guilt behind her eyes. That moment I realized I'd been living a lie. Everything she told me, her love, her faithfulness, was just bullshit. And somehow I had been stupid enough to believe it. I walked out of that house that night feeling like I'd been punched again, but this time in the chest. It wasn't just the affair itself. It was the fact that she'd lied about everything, that I'd built my whole future on a lie. I kept asking myself, how could I have been so blind? Did I ever really know her? Or was I just fooling myself into thinking I did? That night I sat alone, staring at the ceiling, trying to process what I just learned. My mind kept circling back to her words, her lies, the fact that she'd been sneaking around behind my back from the start. I felt angry but also devastated. I'd trusted her with everything, and she'd just thrown it all away for some meaningless sex with her boss. I wondered how she could be so callous, so manipulative, and whether I was just another pawn in her game. I knew I couldn't go on pretending everything was okay. The truth was out now, and I had to decide what to do next. Stay and try to fix this, or cut my losses and walk away. Honestly, right then I felt like quitting on everything. But part of me also wanted revenge, something to remind her that she couldn't just play with my feelings, that she couldn't get away with betraying me and lying her way out of it. But I wasn't sure what that looked like yet. All I knew was I couldn't stay silent anymore. I had to face the truth, no matter how ugly it was. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, the one she always put on when she was lying to my face. That smug, dismissive look she had when she denied everything. It made my blood boil. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I let her get away with it for so long. I thought I knew her, but now I realized I'd never really understood who she was beneath that confident mask. I decided I had to find out more. I wasn't going to let her just walk away with my life and my trust. I started digging through her stuff, her phone, her emails, her social media. I needed proof, something concrete I could use to confront her properly, to make her see how betrayed I felt. I wasn't planning to just storm out or yell. I wanted to catch her in her lies one last time, show her I knew everything. Her phone was the key. I snuck into her email account, her social apps, and found more than I expected. There were messages from Mark, not just flirty ones but explicit conversations, photos, plans to meet up, even promises of more when she was away from me. It was almost sickening how much she'd lied. She told me she was working late, visiting her sister, running errands. Meanwhile, she was sneaking around with her boss, planning secret rendezvous, talking about their sexcapades in detail. One message that stuck out was from her late one night saying, "Can't wait to see you again, Mark. I need you so badly, it's killing me." That one hit me hard. She was saying she needed him, not just to have sex, but to feel alive, to feel desired. And I realized this wasn't some fling. It was an affair she was actively hiding from me right before our wedding. It made me wonder, how long had this been going on? Weeks, months. And what else was she hiding? I found receipts of hotel bookings, texts about her sneaking out after work, even flirtatious messages that made it clear she was more than just physically involved. The worst part was knowing she'd lied so effortlessly about everything. She made me feel like I was paranoid, like I was overreacting. All along she was betraying me, lying through her teeth, and I had been blind. I knew it was time for a serious talk, no more hiding or pretending. I wanted her to face her lies. That day I brought her into the living room, my heart pounding, and laid everything out on the table. My phone, the receipts, the screenshots. Every message, every photo, every lie she'd told me. I watched her face twist in shock, then anger, then denial. She yelled back at me, calling me crazy, accusing me of invading her privacy, saying I was paranoid and insecure. She dismissed my evidence, told me I was jealous, that I didn't understand her, that she was just stressed about work, that Mark was just a friend who was helping her get ahead. But I knew better. I saw the truth in her eyes. She knew she was caught. She was angry, bitter, and seemed to believe she was somehow justified in what she was doing. That moment hurt worse than anything. Seeing her try to rationalize her lies, it made me question everything. Had I ever really known her? Was our whole relationship built on a lie? I felt like a fool, like I'd been played from the start. And yet, underneath all that anger, there was this aching sadness. I'd loved her. I still loved her, even after everything. It was a confusing cocktail of betrayal, heartbreak, and rage. I told her I couldn't stay in a marriage where I was being used and lied to, that I was done pretending, done being her fool. She just sneered and told me I was overreacting, that I'd regret throwing away what we had. But I knew I wouldn't. I knew I had to do something, something to take control of the situation. Because if I didn't, I'd just be another sucker, another guy who was duped by his own wife. So I started planning my next move. I knew I had to be smart about this. I wasn't going to rush into anything reckless, but I also couldn't just forgive her and act like everything was fine. She needed to understand that I wasn't some pushover. That betrayal like this wasn't going to slide. I decided I'd give her one last chance to come clean, but I was prepared for whatever came next. I wasn't going to let her ruin my life without a fight. And honestly, part of me was already figuring out how to get revenge, because the only thing she understood was power and consequences, and I was ready to give her both. Over the next few days, my mind was a storm of rage, confusion, and betrayal. I kept replaying everything, her lies, her sneers, those damn texts from Mark. It was like I was living in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I'd catch myself staring at her phone, at her emails, just waiting for the next piece of evidence. Somewhere deep inside, I knew I needed a plan, something to make her regret what she'd done, to remind her she couldn't just cheat and lie her way out of everything. I started doing My homework, digging into her schedule, her habits, trying to figure out her next move. I needed to know if she was still seeing him, if she was planning to keep this going, or if she'd already moved on. It was brutal, but I had to be tactical. I didn't want her to catch on that I was onto her. I needed to stay one step ahead. One afternoon, I decided to follow her. She told me she was going to visit her sister, but I knew better than to trust her words. So I parked a few streets away and watched her leave the house. She got into her car and I followed at a safe distance. She went to some shabby hotel downtown. My stomach clenched. I parked across the street watching her check in, her forehead creased with frustration or maybe guilt. I couldn't believe she was still doing this. I snapped some pictures, took mental notes, and drove home to think about my next move. That night, I sat in my apartment, replaying everything I knew. I was furious at her, at myself for ever trusting her, and at Mark for being part of this mess. I realized I needed to confront her directly, but I also needed leverage. If I was going to expose her, I had to do it on my terms, not hers. The next morning, I called a private investigator. It was a risky move, but I wanted undeniable proof, and I wasn't about to let her manipulate her way out of this. The investigator was discreet, professional, and promised to get photos and videos if she kept this up. I gave him a few details, sat back, and waited. While I waited, I started drafting a plan. I wasn't planning to just confront her in a heated moment. No, I wanted her to see that I was serious, that I had evidence, and that I wasn't going to be played anymore. I decided I'd set a trap, something to finally make her realize she couldn't keep deceiving me. I kept telling myself I'd be strong, that I wouldn't fall apart even if the whole truth came crashing down. Meanwhile, I kept telling myself that I deserved better, that she was just some selfish bitch who thought she could have her cake and eat it too. The thought that she was cheating right before our wedding made me sick. I kept wondering if the Emma I loved was ever real or if she was just a master manipulator all along. Did she ever truly love me? Or was I just a placeholder, someone she used until something better came along? The more I thought about it, the more I realized that trust, once broken, doesn't just heal. It leaves scars, deep ones. Then, the day the pictures came back. The investigator sent me a folder of proof, photos of her sneaking into that hotel with Mark, kissing him, touching him, even some vague but unmistakable sexual images. Seeing those made my blood run cold. I felt like I was drowning in betrayal. It was real. She'd been lying to my face, cheating behind my back, all the while pretending everything was fine. I sat there staring at the images, feeling numb but also burning with rage. I knew I couldn't stay quiet anymore. I had to do something, something big enough to make her see she couldn't keep doing this. I wasn't going to let her ruin what little dignity I had left. I decided I'd give her one last chance to come clean, to confess, to tell me the truth, no more lies, no more excuses. That night I confronted her again. I showed her the photos. I told her I knew everything. Her reaction was perfect. She looked genuinely stunned, caught off guard. She tried to deny it, of course, saying everything was a misunderstanding, that Mark was just a friend, that I was crazy to think she'd do something so stupid. But I had the proof. I had her dead to rights. She started crying, but I didn't buy it. That wasn't remorse, that was guilt. And I realized that the Emma I once loved was gone, replaced by a woman who was selfish, manipulative, and willing to throw away her marriage for a quick thrill. I felt a strange mixture of relief and heartbreak. Relief that I finally knew the truth, heartbreak that I ever loved her at all. At that moment, I knew my decision was made. I couldn't stay with someone who betrayed me like this. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was okay. I told her I was leaving, that I couldn't be with someone so dishonest. She begged, she accused. She even tried to guilt-trip me into staying, but I was done listening to her lies. I packed my things that night, feeling like I was finally taking back control of my life. It was over, but somehow I felt the weight of everything lift. I had confronted the truth, and that was the first step toward healing, though I knew the scars would stay with me for a while. The aftermath of that night was worse than I anticipated. I thought once I confronted her with proof, everything would be straightforward. She'd admit, apologize, maybe even beg for forgiveness. But Emma, true to her manipulative nature, didn't go down that easy. She doubled down on her lies, calling me crazy, accusing me of stalking her, saying I was just jealous and insecure. She tried to turn things around, making it seem like I was the one at fault for suspecting her, like I was the one who'd lost his mind. Honestly, it made me furious. How could she think she was going to manipulate her way out of this? I had the photos, the evidence, the truth, but she was good at gaslighting. She kept insisting she loved me, that Mark was just some mistake, a one-time thing. She said she was stressed out, that she never meant for it to happen, that she'd never do something so stupid if she truly loved me. I looked at her, hearing her desperate words, and all I could think was how much of a liar she still was. She'd been lying all along, and now she was trying to rewrite history. That night, I stayed in my apartment, feeling a mix of anger and emptiness. I kept asking myself if I should give her one last chance, if maybe I was overreacting, if I was just being paranoid. But deep down, I knew the truth. She'd already betrayed everything we had. Trust was shattered. No matter what she said now, I couldn't unsee the lies, the sneaking around, the secret meetings. And honestly, I didn't want to stay in a relationship built on deception. I felt betrayed to my core, and I couldn't pretend everything was fine anymore. The next day, I started making arrangements. I reached out to a lawyer, began planning how to handle the process of separation. I knew I couldn't stay and pretend everything was okay when I was carrying around all this pain and betrayal. I also contacted a counselor, something I'd probably need for the emotional fallout. I realized I'd been so caught up in the shock and anger that I hadn't even processed how broken I felt. I'd loved her, I'd given her everything, and she'd thrown it away for some cheap thrill with her boss. While I was doing all this, Emma kept trying to contact me. Her texts became more desperate, more frantic. She begged me to talk, to listen, to understand that she was sorry, that she loved me, that she'd change. But I couldn't buy any of it. Sorry didn't undo what she'd done. Love wasn't enough to fix this kind of damage. I knew I had to put myself first now, protect my sanity, my dignity, whatever was left of my self-respect. Once I finalized the decision to leave, I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with sadness. I wasn't happy about ending things, but I understood that I couldn't keep living in a lie. I had to rebuild from this mess, one step at a time. I realized that trusting someone again would be a long road if I ever did. Right now, I just needed to focus on healing myself. That's what mattered most. Looking back, I think what hurt the most wasn't just the betrayal itself, but the fact that I'd been so blind for so long. I kept asking myself, how did I miss all the signs? Was I really that naive? Or was she just that good at hiding who she really was? It's hard to admit, but I think I wanted to see the best in her, to believe in the fairy tale. Now I know better. People can hide a lot behind a pretty face, behind smooth words and fake affection. This whole experience has changed me. I'm more cautious now, more aware that not everyone is who they appear to be. I don't trust easily anymore, and I definitely won't ignore my gut feelings. I think that's the biggest lesson I've learned. Trust your instincts, no matter how much you want to believe in someone. If something feels off, it probably is. And don't ever let anyone make you feel guilty for protecting your heart. Honestly, I don't regret uncovering the truth. It hurt like hell, but it set me free. I finally see Emma for who she really was, the kind of person who lies and cheats and then gaslights her way out of responsibility. I deserve better. Everyone does. I'm still healing, still trying to put the pieces back together, but I know one thing. I won't let her betrayal define me. I'll come out of this stronger, one way or another. The weeks that followed were some of the hardest I've ever gone through. Leaving Emma was a soul-crushing decision, but deep inside, I knew I couldn't stay with someone who betrayed me so completely. It wasn't just about the affair. It was about the fact that she'd lied about everything, lied to my face, and made me question everything I thought I knew about her and myself. That level of deception leaves scars, and I was determined not to let her scars define me. Living alone was a strange experience. The silence in my apartment was deafening at first. I kept finding myself reaching for my phone, expecting her to call or text, then realizing she wasn't there anymore. I'd walk into the kitchen and see her coffee mug, and for a split second I'd forget everything. I'd think about calling her, then remember the truth. No more lies, no more pretending she still cared. It was like mourning a death, grieving the loss of someone I loved who was no longer a part of my life. I started seeing a therapist. It was one of the smartest decisions I could have made. Talking through everything, my feelings, the betrayal, the anger, helped me process the pain. The therapist told me that what I was feeling was normal, that I was allowed to be upset, that I wasn't weak for feeling broken. Slowly, I began to rebuild my confidence, piece by piece, learning to trust myself again, learning that my feelings mattered and that I deserved honesty and respect from the next person I let into my life. Friends and family were incredibly supportive, though some didn't quite understand the depth of what I was going through. I didn't expect them to. Most just told me to focus on myself, to heal, and to remember that there's plenty of fish in the sea. Easier said than done, but I appreciated the advice. I started going out more, reconnecting with old hobbies and trying to find meaning in things outside of her. It wasn't easy. The pain lingered, but I knew I had to keep moving forward. One thing I realized was how much I'd compromised myself in that relationship. I had ignored my gut feelings, dismissed the signs, and stayed quiet because I didn't want to rock the boat. That was my mistake. Betrayal doesn't just hurt. It teaches you hard lessons about boundaries, about listening to your instincts, and about never settling for less than what you deserve. I promised myself that moving forward, I would never ignore those red flags again, no matter how uncomfortable they made me. As time went on, I started dating again. Not seriously at first, just casual dinners, coffees, conversations with people who seemed genuine. It was a way to remind myself that trust could be rebuilt, that not everyone was like Emma. But I was cautious. I kept my guard up, and honestly, I think that's what I needed. Trust isn't given, it's earned, and I wasn't about to give it away easily anymore. Looking back, I realized that this whole ordeal has changed me in ways I never expected. I've become more guarded, yes, but also more self-aware. I understand now that love isn't just about feeling good. It's about honesty, respect, and mutual understanding. And if those aren't present, then it's not worth holding on to. I learned that betrayal is a mirror, showing you who someone truly is and giving you a chance to see your worth. Most importantly, I've learned that I'm stronger than I thought, that I can survive heartbreak, lies, and betrayal and come out the other side still standing. I don't regret uncovering the truth, even if it hurt like hell. Because now I can finally start healing properly, rebuild my life, and maybe someday find someone who actually deserves my trust. Someone who won't lie, manipulate, or cheat behind my back. Someone who will treat me with the respect I now know I deserve. That's what I'm aiming for now, learning from my mistakes and moving forward, one step at a time. It's been a few months since I finally walked away from Emma, and honestly, I feel like I'm finally starting to breathe again. The pain still lingers. Those wounds don't just heal overnight. But I've reached a point where I can look in the mirror and recognize the person I see. I've learned some hard lessons about trust, honesty, and what I truly deserve. The whole experience has left me more cautious, but also more aware of what I need to protect myself from. One thing I know for sure now is that betrayal cuts deep, but it also teaches you resilience. I've come to realize that I don't need someone who lies to me, who cheats behind my back, or who manipulates my feelings. I deserve authenticity and respect. Those are the foundations of any real relationship. And if someone isn't willing to give that, then I'm better off alone than settling for the crumbs of a fake love. Looking back, I see how much I was willing to ignore or dismiss the signs because I wanted to believe in the fairy tale. I wanted to believe that Emma was the one, that she loved me, that she was faithful. But now I know that love is built on trust, not on blind faith. It's about honesty, about being real with each other, and about respecting each other's boundaries and feelings. Anything less is a lie waiting to fall apart. I also learned to listen to my instincts. That little voice inside that warns you when something's wrong, trust it. Don't brush it aside or convince yourself you're overreacting. Because, at the end of the day, your gut is the best guide you have. Ignoring it only leads to pain and regret. Most importantly, I've come to realize that I don't have to carry this burden alone. I sought help, leaned on friends and family, and took the time I needed to heal. That's how I moved forward step by step, day by day. And I want anyone reading this to know, if you're going through something similar, you're not alone. It hurts like hell and it's okay to feel broken, but you're stronger than you think. You can survive this. And someday you'll come out the other side with a clarity and strength that can't be taken away. So here's my final thought. Never settle for less than what you deserve. Never ignore your instincts. And always remember, betrayal doesn't define you. How you respond to it does. I'm still healing, still finding my way, but I know one thing for sure. I am more than this pain, and I am ready to rebuild a life based on honesty, respect, and genuine love.